Welcome to Two Chicks Talk Writing. I'm your co-host, Isabella.
And I'm McGee.
If you liked today's episode, click the subscribe button down below, and you'll stay up to date with all of the new Two Chicks Talk Writing podcasts.
Welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, the very first one, so I'm so excited. So what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I have questions about you. I have known you, I guess, I'm thinking 3 years now from the book convention in Reno is where we met, the Book Lovers Con.
Right, I'm sorry.
Like in an elevator or something. You were like, hey, and I'm like, hi, and that was pretty much it.
Sometimes,
Yeah, well, I was still scared to talk to people who are publishers and writers and stuff. And so I was just a little book nerd and was, hi, and all starstruck. So.
Oh, come on.
All right. So let's start back. When did you write your first book?
I started writing my first book in 2009. That was Always Faithful. I was a voracious lesfic reader and thought, oh, I could do this. Like every author starts, I didn't have like this driving passion to be an author. Growing up, I wanted to be a comic book artist.
Cool.
That was like my dream job. And then I went to college and I had an art teacher who said, yeah, that term starving artist isn't just by accident. You really do starve. And so I was like, oh, great. Probably don't want to do that now. Thanks for ruining that dream. Anyway, when I came out, I was reading a lot of lesfic and I thought, wow, this is great. I wonder if I could do this. And I got enrolled in a program. A publishing house was looking to build their stable of writers. And I had this story that I was writing and I submitted it. And out of, I think, 300 people, 7 or 9 of us got accepted into the program. And so we were going to work with an editor from the publishing company. And so we did about 4 sessions of that, and the editor ended up getting sick and couldn't continue, so they kind of stopped the program. But what they did do is assign you with an editor that you could work with. And I worked with one of their editors and finished the book, submitted it. The publisher didn't say, oh, I don't want to publish you. The publisher said, like the premise, want you to rewrite the whole story. And here's how I want you to rewrite the whole story.
Oh, man.
And I said, that would be your book, not my book.
Right.
And so I started looking at self-publishing, and it was kind of in its infancy at that time in 2010. And so I did. I went through a couple edits with that editor, and then had brought in another editor to edit the book, and finally published it in 2010.
Cool.
So that's the award-winning book, Always Faithful. So I'm super excited.
Right, and 10 years of experience. So that's cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if it's experience, but it's definitely been the educational track by Hard Knocks.
Right. Well, haven't you ever seen those book experts, and you look on their thing and you were like, wow, and then you read down and they've written 2 books and you're like, no.
Right.
And they're getting like $200 a whack for these people to watch their video, and you're like, what is wrong with people?
What is wrong with people?
I don't know.
Dude's written 2 books. Don't get super excited because I'm not sure his depth of knowledge is deeper than a puddle and not a well.
Well, exactly. And and I mean, what works for you might not work for me, but here's a way, consider, maybe learning from some of my bumps and not making the same mistakes I did. So
right. So what not to interrupt, but how did you get into writing?
Well, actually, when I was in my late 20s, I wrote my first book. had no idea what I was doing, except I'd read a lot of stuff. I mean, back then you go to the library and Les Fick was like 4 books on the shelf, and I re-owned them all. So, so I wrote this thing and I sent it to like one of the 2 publishers, and one of the editors called me back. She said, yeah, this is a good first book. We can do something with this, we'll get back to you. And then I didn't hear anything. And then I called back after, the 90 days of sweating blood. And they're like, well, we decided to cut back from 15 to 10 this year, so yours didn't make the cut. And I just threw it in a drawer, and that was the end of it. So
Oh, wow.
I was too nervous to send it to anybody else, and I'm just like, forget it. So I didn't do anything with writing until really about the time that we were in Reno. I had started doing some sprinting with some friends. We were trying to write some stuff, and boy, did I think I knew what I was doing. I was just, this is what you do. And it took me a few conversations with my friends to realize, maybe I don't know all that I think I do, and I should take a step back for a moment. So while we were in Reno, I did pitch my book to a publisher that is now, if not defunct, very closely onto its knees. And they asked for the copy. I sent them the copy. They sat on it forever. And then I really just got the impression they just didn't want to work with a new writer, so I had a couple of other books in the meantime that I've been writing. So they were kind of, to me, contemporary. They were set in the 80s. And they do that Twitter pitch thing, where editors say if they like it or not. Well, everybody liked the historical book that, that Sapphire Place published. You might have heard of them.
Maybe.
So they all seemed to think that was a great idea, but nobody liked the other one. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to self-publish this one. I'll go through that. So I went through all of the learning curve of Amazon uploads, and I had been to the different workshops in Reno and listened to what the people said. I did what they said, and it worked out pretty good. I'm halfway through the series. I'm pretty happy with it. But I think I'll always be a hybrid because I don't think everything I write will fit the wheelhouse of a publishing place. And if it doesn't fit their brand, it doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just means it doesn't fit their brand. So just hit upload and do it myself, so.
Sure. Well, and, to be honest, I know that publishers, look for certain niches, and they have kind of their silos of what they do publish and what they don't publish. So sometimes it's easier to ask a publisher, what don't you publish, than it is to say, what do you publish? Because most of us know what we don't publish, whether it's nonfiction, whether it's, I don't know, fantasy, high fantasy, high sci-fi. So a lot of publishers, sometimes it's easier to figure out what they don't publish, and usually it's listed on their page. Usually, if you're paying attention and you're doing what you need to do when you're investigating, you'll see it right on their page. So, did we just not chat while we were in Reno? And
I just think we didn't move in the same circles very often. We ran into each other in the elevator like twice or something. And then you happened to be talking to a friend of mine that I had met while I was there. And I kind of ambled up and we kind of, chatted a minute, but it wasn't anything, memorable for sure for you, for me. And I just remembered you because you were super duper tall in your boots.
that was a Romantic Times conference, right?
Yeah, the last when it switched to Book Lovers, it was their last one. Yeah. So it was all the romance people and stuff, and I took just a crap ton of classes, and I met some great folks. I mean, some of them are still people that beta read for me. Kind of was at a turning point in terms of whether I was going to keep writing or not, and just ran into people that were like, yes, keep writing. We all suck the first things we do. It's okay. Just keep writing, just keep writing.
Yeah, I see, the difference between, someone who's successful and someone who's not is at some point they stopped, It's definitely an industry that will throw up as many roadblocks as it possibly can. And you have to be tenacious, you have to be hungry. you have to want this. And I think that oftentimes a lot of people get discouraged and frustrated and, like I said, throw the manuscript in a drawer and walk away and go, well, on to new things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I have to say, it did feel good to have had written a book, even if nothing ever happened with it. I could say I had done, checked that box, so that was cool. And, and the self-published stuff, if I say so, went pretty darn well. I had at least some storytelling ability. The writing ability, may continue to improve, I hope. But I am that age where having a publisher behind you meant something to me. And so I was super happy to be able to say, yeah, I'm a published author. Yeah, no, not just something because you remember those vanity presses back in the day, give somebody $4,000 and they'll give you 1,000 copies of your book you can sell from the trunk of your car. And,
They're still very popular.
And people think that's self-publishing, and it's not, but
right.
And, some people think, well, I wrote this, I'm just going to upload it. And
well, just so you know, on Amazon every day, 1,600 and about 70 books are published a day on Amazon.
Dang.
Okay. 70 an hour. One book is being uploaded every 5 minutes on Amazon. So that just goes to show you that there are a lot of people publishing a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And that's just book. That's, that's nothing else. That's just ebooks.
Man. And all those people that stayed home from work for a year and a half during the pandemic, I think I'll write a book. All that's hitting the market too, I'm sure. So, yeah. And, I have to say, I was in a local writing group back in the day when we first moved to Greenville, and my wife was still nudging me, you should be writing still. I'm like, So I joined the little writing group, and we had a time where we were each reading a chapter, and this fellow handed out copies, and he had done it all in all caps and one solid stream down the entire page. It was the most awesome sci-fi story I had heard in years. And people just shredded him because of the editing. I'm like, dude, you can pay a kid $10 an hour at Clemson. They'll fix all this crap. You don't have to worry about it. And he's like, well, I guess I'm not a good writer. And I was just so mad at those people that had no creds at all to be judging somebody. And here they just,
So you know what?
Wherever I quit the group after that, and I hope wherever he landed, he's writing freaking awesome sci-fi books. Because
those should be a couple of shows. Writing groups. Editing software.
Writing groups,
editing software, because you can get some pretty decent editing software. I've tried several different ones, and like writing groups, critique groups. My personal feeling is I hate them, but I would, we should do a show and we could explore all of them.
Pros and cons, things about that. Yeah, that'd be awesome. See,
that'd be good.
This is going to be a cool podcast.
It is, and I hope everybody will listen, because I think we have some experience between us. We probably have over 20 books that we've released between us, so we might know a little something about writing.
A few things. What's worked for me, what's worked for you. Yeah.
Right. And I think across the genre, we've written. I've never written a historical. You have. We've delved into female police officers and firefighters, sci-fi, vampires, at least on my side, all kinds of things. So I think we have a good cross section of experience in genres and writing styles.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great.
Yeah. I took the GCLS Writing Academy this year because I felt like I had some areas I probably could teach a class or two, but I had some serious gaps in my knowledge, and I wanted to fill some of those. So that was a great opportunity to work with other writers and lots of different experience. Some, it was their first manuscript they were working on. Some had written 2 or 3 books that were already published. So a lot of different depth in that. every class, I learned something different. So it was a great experience for that. And I feel like as a biologist, that gives me a little street cred as why are you writing?
There you go. There you go. You know what? I think every writer, regardless of where they are in their career, should work on their craft. Take a class, take several classes, go back and look at your writing and see if it's improved.
So I have one more question I was going to ask. How did you come up with your pen name?
Super easy question. I am the mother of 3 sons, and I was not blessed with a girl. So I always thought if I ever had a daughter, I would name her Isabella. Aww. And since I didn't have a daughter, I took on the name Isabella. And, I didn't want 2 names. It's hard enough for me to remember Isabella. I'm used to it now. Mm-hmm. I'm used to people calling me Isabella and answering both to Chris and Isabella. Funny story. I went to my first GCLS, and obviously everybody knew me as Isabella there. And I'm walking and someone says, "Hey, Isabella." And I just keep walking. And my wife taps me and she said, "I think they're talking to you." I was like, first off, you know who I am. I'm shocked.
Right.
Hold on.
Right.
And then you called me by Isabella. I'm not quite used to answering to that name, but we'll get there.
And maybe you don't quite look like what people would think an Isabella might look like. I don't know. I'm just going on a limb there, but
you might be right.
I'm just thinking that. So yeah, I had the same experience. My wife had to tap me, and the entire row of people was yelling my pen name to me, and I'm like, I wonder who that is.
Who's that? Where are they?
Yeah, where? They're just deaf,
how'd you come up with yours?
The last name actually is what my real last name is when you translate it from Eastern European. It's very hard to come up with the first name that hasn't gone with a common last name. When I Google, I'm like, that nobody's got that name. Oh, there's 6 of them. Are you kidding me? So McGee isn't terribly often used yet for girls, but it's starting to be in Scotland. And every time I do that DNA thing, I come out more Scottish. Genealogy is one of my hobbies. So if you ever want to really nerd out, I can roll out my trees I've made for all my characters. So
there you go.
It gives you a good backstory. So
hey, I think that's another great topic to cover is how do you map out your novels? Do you use family trees? And I've only used a family tree for one novel, and that was Cigar Barons, because of the lineage and how it had to all intersect, because we didn't want sisters and brothers marrying each other and stuff. Yeah. Not that that couldn't happen on my mom's side of the family, who's from Arkansas, but I don't.
Hey now, yeah, I know. And my tree goes far deep into the south, and I have some branches. I've been concerned about their linear nature, but it turns out it's not as linear as I was afraid of. So, anyways, we're good. We're good. If you have something you want to hear us talk about, make some comments below.
Check out our Two Chicks Talk Writing website at www.2chickstalkwriting.com. You'll find all of our past podcast episodes there, as well as some tools and tips and freebies you can download. You can also check out our Facebook page, Two Chicks Talk Writing, and our Instagram at Two Chicks Talk Writing.